Interplanetary, fine. They're intergalactic, fine. Another universe, fine. Another dimension, I don't know. I just don't know. You know, it doesn't really matter to me. I know they exist, I know they're real, and that's enough for me. I mean, if they ever tell me where they're from, I'll let you know. I think there were multiple crafts. We only saw them like one at a time. But they were round, oval-shaped, very bright. Sometimes they were dark. When they were around, there is just an incredibly beautiful silence. I mean, it was like I was inside a vacuum.
Over the years and up to now, many are said to have experienced frenzied encounters with aliens or UFOs and alien abductions. Many of them have not had the opportunity and privilege to share their experience of these creatures with the world. Others are asked to never share experiences and encounters of this kind. Gradually, however, more people came out, each with their own unique experience. In this video, you will discover the story of David Huggins, a man who's had many sexual relations with these creatures over the decades. The loss of virginity is said to be a memorable one. Most people remember this act with amusement and perhaps a little confusion. But David Huggins says the first time he had sex, yes, more unusual than most. David Huggins claims that at the age of 17, he had a virginal relationship with an alien, the 74-year-old said in his documentary Love and Saucers. That was all he could say. The intercourse is believed to have taken place in 1961, when Huggins was a teenager living on his parents' farm in rural Georgia. This isn't the first time aliens have appeared to him. He's been seeing strange creatures since he was 8 years old. But that day, while he was walking in the woods near his house, an alien woman appeared and seduced him. He thinks, conversely, he's going to lose it in the back seat of a Ford, something like that. But it didn't turn out that way. According to Huggins, these extraterrestrial visits and his sexual relationship with them continued into adulthood. When interviewed for this story, Huggins said his last encounter with Crescent, the name he gave to the woman in the woods, was 6 months ago. He was sitting on a chair, and the woman, Crescent, was behind him, and she put her arms around him. And that's about it. He knows nothing but that since the last time he met her. Huggins appeared confused when discussing his encounters. This sets it apart from what most of us expect from true UFO enthusiasts. He didn't join for the sake of popularity and didn't care if anyone believed him or not. When Huggins talks about fathering hundreds of alien children, and yes, that's another aspect of his encounters, he sounds as neutral as a farmer explaining crop rotation crops. Huggins was born in rural Georgia in 1944. In Love and Saucers, he talks about hunting arrowheads in nearby fields for fun and dislikes the evangelical Baptist church his grandparents sometimes took him to. Arrive. When strange creatures that no one can see begin to appear around the farm, he thinks he has lost his mind. He once said he was sitting under a tree and heard that voice say, "David, behind you." And he turned around and there was a hairy guy with big bright eyes coming straight at him. He thought it was Bogart. He doesn't know what to do with it, he says in the movie. Another day, an insect-like creature that reminded Huggins of a praying mantis appeared. He said he was very scared. It was like, what am I looking at? And for an 8-year-old, you don't know what to think. Once the shock wore off, Huggins said his encounters were strange, but not too threatening. When he left Georgia in the mid-1960s to attend art school in New York, the creatures followed him. Nightly visits from Crescent, the alien who had let him down, had become the norm. His relationship with Crescent is said to be warm and friendly, a bit strange. What does he mean, a little bit? Very strange. In fact, she's his girlfriend, Huggins says in the film. A very unusual relationship. One of the first paintings Huggins ever painted was of him and Crescent making love. Pain is not really good. He said that the alien woman was on top of me. He went to the top, then she and the insect disappeared. Similar paintings fill his apartment. They are surreal and a bit childish, dominated by dark blue. Here's another thing that sets Huggins apart from most people with alien abduction stories. He paints his encounters. It all started in 1987 when Huggins began to recall details of his first visits. He said the flood was caused by the book The Intruders by Bud Hopkins. Incredible visits to Copley Woods. It's like a restriction. They led him to the book, he said. There was this chapter, Different Women, Different Men, and I started reading it, and I said, oh my God, that's a woman I've never told anyone. When I read it, memory after memory came flooding back. It's frame after frame. They won't stop. He said the thing that bothered him the most was that he didn't know what to do with it. He was very scared. It seems like he's almost gone mad, because he can't come to terms with the experience that happened to him. What are they? Why him? It seems like he is losing control of his life and reality. And then it became clear that he got the message from the creatures that he should redraw the experiences. And as soon as he started doing it, it changed him. He said it was a relief. He was able to sleep for the first time in weeks. And since then, he's been painting every detail of each encounter. Hundreds of paintings. It is art therapy. When he finds a way to visually represent the rest of the world, or even himself, what happened through art, he can process, understand, and accept everything that happens to you. Then there is Jeffrey Kripal, a professor of philosophy and religious thought at Rice University in Texas. He spent much of his early career studying erotic mysticism, which led him to study the literature on alien abduction. The whole history of religion is basically about strange beings coming from the sky and doing strange things to people, and historically, these events or encounters have been described as angels or demons or gods or goddesses. But in the modern and rather mundane world we live in, they are presented in the form of science fiction. Professor of philosophy believes Huggins. He says the mixture of fear and euphoria described by Huggins fits centuries-old descriptions of human encounters with the divine. Additionally, the details of Huggins' abduction mirror those described by others interviewed by Kripal, who believe they have had supernatural experiences. He said he didn't fully believe they weren't lying. They are very sincere. But then again, that's a whole different matter. And that's when he thinks we need to be a lot more humble. Whether or not you believe that Huggins has actually had sex with aliens over the past 50 years, it is obvious that Huggins himself believes in it. Consider that this man is not lying, and that he conveys something that he lived, but it should not be taken as superficial. There are people who cannot go crazy and still claim to have had these completely inexplicable experiences. What he says is even more compelling than truth exists or not, is that stories like Huggins's are about the impulse to explain what we don't understand and our limited capacity to interpret. About every feeling, experience, and random shot. Neurons that accompany humans. When Huggins was asked why he thought these creatures appeared to him, he replied, "I have the feeling that tens of millions of people, possibly hundreds of millions, have had similar experiences. Mostly when I was a kid. That's all I can really say. But I think as children we are very open to the things these creatures can come up with before our eyes. I know I never stopped at that, because it went on all my life.